Something I see very commonly in people's portfolios is a difficulty in drawing things like special effects. So in this panel here, I'm going to draw an explosion and then draw some radial lines coming out from it and just kind of create an overall effect. For starters, I know that my explosion is coming from the lower right-hand corner. And I just want to start drawing in some shapes of the smoke. And it's very, very important that you make sure not to draw all the same size and shape. And that's something that's very easy to fall in the trap of doing. So I know if I draw a shape like this behind this shape here, it'll push backwards in space away from me. And if I draw shapes in front like this, it'll push forward toward me. So that's a trick. It's very important to be consistent with that as you go. And I'm going to draw a nice big tendril of smoke coming out uh, toward the viewer here. And what I'm doing right now is similar to a figure drawing. I'm drawing in kind of the bones of what I want first, and then I'll go in and put in some shadowing and line weight and that kind of thing. But what's most important right now is just getting it all drawn in where I want it, and then I can go tighter and cleaner from there. And the last stage is always a little bit of rendering at the end. It really took me a long time when I was learning how to draw. And I mean, obviously, we're all still learning, but when I was pretty new, to be able to draw random looking shapes, it's so easy to get into a place where you're just drawing um, the same shape over and over again. And that's something I see pretty frequently. So just really, as much as you can, try to be aware that you want to draw big shapes and little shapes and be as random with it as possible. And if an area looks like it's getting a little consistent, then erase it and try and do something a little bit more random looking. So I think that's basically going to cover my underdrawing. Um, Now from here, I'm going to start putting in some darker areas just to fill this out. Increase my pencil size just a little bit. When I'm working on paper, I always find that as I'm drawing, my pencil will get um, more and more dull. That's something that I can really play with just by turning the pencil in my hand, and I do that always when I draw, so I can maintain a point. But at the same time, you can really take advantage of a duller pencil when you want to do this kind of thing. And I know some artists that use maybe a 2H to draw most things, and then if they need to fill something in, they'll use a softer lead just because it prevents you from killing yourself doing this. And I have never done that. It's maybe something I need to look into. I think I'm way too superstitious when I draw. I develop a method, and it's really hard for me to break it. With this, I'm really just trying to make sure that I'm not drawing all the same thickness everywhere and trying to keep it broken up and interesting looking. Unfortunately, this really is a bit of a feel thing. I'm kind of racking my brain to come up with a exact formula of how something like this would work, but there really isn't one. It's a bit of a feel thing, and I think you just need to be aware when you're looking at your art that it has the look that you're looking for, and if it doesn't, erase that area and work with it until it does. And I think, the more you do that, and the more you're willing to erase something that doesn't really have the exact look you're looking for, you'll improve much faster than just settling. All right, so I've got all of my black areas filled in here. I just want to go ahead and kind of skip past. It gets a little repetitious. So from here, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more, bring my pencil size down a little bit, and do some rendering. I'm really just kind of following the form. I've got a big, round, broad sort of form here, so I just want to make sure to be nice and even with all my lines. Take the time to sculpt them out and do it right. It's very easy to just get in a habit of starting to throw lines, and actually that looks a little less bad than it does sometimes for me, but you can really end up with a mess very quickly, and I think it's worth taking the time. Even though generally when you're penciling, you're going to have an inker go ahead and they have much more of an ability to get a thick to thin than you do with a pencil, obviously. I think indicating that really it makes the inker's life easier. They know exactly what you're thinking. They have to do less interpretation, and it just makes for better looking pencils. There are times I feel like maybe I'm putting time into things that really make no difference, but I just want, when something comes off my desk, I want it to look as good as possible. So it's worth that little bit of extra time. Okay, so from here I want to go in and put some radiating lines out from my explosion. And I've already got my ruler set up. I'm not really going to go into how to set all this stuff up in Manga Studio, but this is where, for me, Manga Studio, I think the brushes are phenomenal, but where it really, really sets itself apart from anything else is the fact that I can draw lines anywhere and they'll automatically conform to the ruler that I've set up. So you can see I've got my point down around here, and all my lines automatically radiate out from it, so it becomes pretty mindless. I don't have to do much thinking. If I'm working on paper, obviously this is a little bit more work intensive using a ruler, but not so much so. What I generally do with pencil and paper is I'll draw myself out a bunch of guidelines, and then I'll just freehand it using those guidelines, and it works fine. And that gives my inker just a little bit more work because they really do end up going through. Rich Friend will use a ruler and do everything right, and I know that's frustrating, but that's part of the job. So when I'm drawing these speed lines, ideally I really want to have some thicker lines like here, a little thin here, and try and break it up a little bit. I don't want every single line to be the exact same kind of length, thickness, and everything. I want it to have a bit of a bounce and life to it. But really, I mean, this is a fairly straightforward thing, I think. And now I'm just going to go a little thicker again. And I'm using white. And this is something that I would normally just use my eraser. I've got a white eraser. It'll just go in and erase a bunch of stuff out. And I always find I'm very lucky with my inker. Rich Friend does a beautiful job. All I want to do is just go in and and break things up a little bit. And I'm gonna go a little thicker here. And this kind of gives it just a little bit more visual interest and maybe a bit of an illusion that there's some things flying out of the explosion here. And I could actually even bolster that just by switching black to black here and drawing in some shadows behind some of the stuff. And that's basically it. That's an explosion. Classic comic book style, nice and clean. And thank you for watching.